Hi, I'm Jen Beloz. I'm the estate director for Faust Wines. We make two expressions of Cabernet, Faust Napa Valley and the Pact, which is our Coombsville Cabernet. I didn't grow up in a family where wine was a common beverage at the table, but I feel very fortunate that I got bit by the wine bug early on. I loved traveling. In my junior year of school, I traveled abroad, and for spring break, I went to a bodega in Rioja. And I remember the first time walking into that winery as a 20-year-old and smelling the smell of the barrel room. And it just hit me that no matter where they grow grapes in the world, it would be a beautiful place to travel. And being in Spain and living there and seeing how wine was such an important and integral part of life. It was food and wine and community and family at the dinner table. And I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And when I graduated from university, I spent my first harvest in Australia while I was traveling over there. And from there, it just went on. We had an intern that worked with me my very first harvest from Alsace. And as soon as we were done with harvest the next summer, I went to visit him and his family in Alsace. And again, young in my career, and it was the first time that I really understood a wine region and how specific. I remember tasting Riesling from Alsace for the first time and listening to his father talk about how the soil and that vine, like the soil imparted the characteristic of the wine, and it was the acidity and the texture of that wine, and having it there with the food at the dinner table that his grandmother made. And it was such a special experience. And Alsace as a place is a little bit like Disneyland with the architecture and how incredible it is. But then packing up my suitcase and bringing home all of these Rieslings and then opening them up at home in Sonoma, they taste different when you're having them in California with the food there. And so to me, it was kind of this one understanding like the specificity of soil and site and how that imparts and impacts like the minerality and the texture of the Rieslings there, but how food and wine have developed together in every region to be, they're aligned. The food in Alsace goes with the wine that comes from there. And when you bring it back home, it was completely different. And that to me, I think was where I started on the path of making wine that is really about making wine that expresses the site in which it's grown, and wine that is also balanced so that it pairs well with food. I just believe that we should make exceptional wine, but that wine should always be made with the idea that it needs to be enjoyed while you're sitting at a table with your friends and family. I kind of think of my wine career as having two very distinct chapters. And I would say that the first part of that, one of my mentors is Joel Peterson. I spent 11 years working for Joel and the team at Ravenswood. There I learned so much about how special Old Vine Zinfandel is and how unique it is to California. It doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. And those vines have soul. But it's also where I learned everything about wine making. And I started there as the cellar worker and worked my way up, cellar worker, assistant winemaker. They let me go back to school at Davis while I was working full-time at the winery. And I just worked my way up and learned everything about how to make wine and how to operate a winery. And then my second chapter was working for the Huneeus family, and Augustin Francisco has really allowed me and shown me and taught me so much about the business side of winemaking. And while I love making wine and talking about it and sharing it with people, but if you can't go out there and tell the story, brilliant at sales and marketing. And so I just feel like I've gotten a business degree working at Huneeus and working and learning from Augusta and Francisco. So at Ravenswood and from Joel, it was all about the winemaking. And with Augustin, it was understanding like, how do you take this incredible product and then tell a story and actually build the brand and the prestige in the wine. One of them for me is that people think wine needs to be expensive to be good. And what I want people, like wine, it's very subjective, right? The quality of wine, to me, it's like when people smell this and they taste it, and it's just like, do you like it or do you not like it? And I think that the quality of the wine comes from the quality of the grapes in the vineyard. But I think that there's a lot of exceptional wine throughout the world that is very high quality, and price doesn't necessarily equate to quality. There are so many mistakes that I have made in my career. I don't even know where I would start with that. I mean, I remember the first time working in the cellar, taking a clamp off a tank. I thought it was empty and I was sanitizing it. And it's 2 in the morning because you're working harvest. And back then there was no, you just worked really long hours and just getting a face full of wine. But I kind of like to not think of them as mistakes because that's like a really simple and stupid mistake. But to me, man, there's so many wines that could have been better or decisions that I made that could have been different, but like they're mistakes, but in the end, they're incredible learning opportunities. And we only have each year, right? You get 1 year for that vintage. And so through the mistakes that we've made, it's like every year, it's just like, this is how I'm banking the knowledge that I can use in the future when you're given the same circumstances. Like, I'm not gonna make that decision again, but it's countless. Like I can't even name, yes, how many learning opportunities I've had in my past. We drink a lot of wine at home because in the end, like I got into this because I fell in love with wine. But sometimes you get home at the end of a long day of tasting Cabernet and you want something to freshen your palate. I live in California and I do enjoy kind of drinking my way through citrus season by making margaritas, like very simple margarita, fresh Meyer lemon, silver tequila, and a little bit of Cointreau. But it has to be like fresh citrus.